Deep in the heart of an abandoned village, forgotten by time and smothered under decades of silence, stood an ancient stone well known to the few who remembered as the Whispering Well. Its crumbling stones, overrun with twisting vines and thick moss, bore the scars of centuries of neglect. The well seemed to breathe, exhaling a faint dampness into the chilly night air. Those who dared approach it reported an unnatural stillness, as if the surrounding woods held their breath, unwilling to disturb whatever lurked beneath. This was no ordinary well. It had a presence, dark, watchful, and hungry. For generations, the villagers had whispered of strange happenings around the well. Farmers would return from the fields, pale and shaken, speaking of disembodied voices that floated on the wind near the water's edge. Hunters avoided the area entirely, claiming the forest near the well was cursed, its trails shifting and leading them astray. The final blow came when a child disappeared, her laughter heard echoing faintly from the depths days after her body was never found. The village was abandoned soon after, leaving the well and its secrets to the encroaching wilderness. Emily Montgomery had heard the rumors online. A burgeoning YouTube explorer known for her channel Echoes of the Past, Emily specialized in uncovering eerie tales and breathing life into abandoned places. The Whispering Well was a perfect mystery for her growing audience. But this wasn't just about views. Emily was driven by a deeper need to confront the shadows of the past, both those of the places she explored and her own personal demons. She arrived at the edge of the forgotten village just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the landscape in hues of deep crimson and shadowy purple. The drive had been long and nerve-wracking, the road narrowing into a winding dirt trail, flanked by towering, gnarled trees that seemed to watch her every move. Her car's headlights cut through the murk, revealing the skeletal remains of old cottages and the faint outline of the well, barely visible through the creeping fog. Emily hesitated, her instincts warring with her curiosity, but she pushed forward. She had come too far to turn back now. The well was larger than Emily had imagined, its stonework surprisingly intact despite years of decay. Its gaping mouth yawned open, an abyss that seemed to drink in the light of her flashlight. As she drew closer, the air grew noticeably colder, the temperature dropping with each step until her breath puffed visibly in the night air. She stopped a few feet away, her heart pounding in the unnatural stillness. The only sounds were her own breathing and the faint crunch of dead leaves beneath her boots. She knelt to inspect the well's edge, running her fingers over the weathered stones. They were cold and damp, slick with moss that clung like a second skin. Suddenly, her flashlight flickered, its beam sputtering weakly before stabilizing. That was when she heard it. A faint sound, so soft she thought at first it was her imagination. It was a whisper, delicate and fleeting, as though carried on a dying breeze. Emily froze, her ears straining to catch the sound again. It came, clearer this time. "Help me, please." Emily's pulse quickened as the voice faded into the oppressive silence. She swept her flashlight around the area, its weak beam cutting through the fog but revealing nothing unusual. Yet the air felt charged, heavy with an unseen presence that made her skin prickle. Against her better judgment, she leaned over the edge of the well, peering into its impenetrable darkness. The faint scent of damp earth and something more acrid, something metallic, rose to meet her. Pulling out her camera, Emily began to record, her hands trembling as she narrated in a hushed voice. "I'm standing at the edge of the Whispering Well," she said, her breath visible in the cold air. "People say this place is cursed, that you can hear voices from its depths. I think I just heard one." She paused, listening intently, but the voice didn't return. As she played back the recording, however, her blood ran cold. Beneath her own words was the faint, unmistakable sound of someone whispering, "Don't leave me." Determined to uncover the truth, Emily explored the abandoned village, her footsteps echoing in the empty streets. She stumbled upon a decrepit library, its roof caved in and its shelves warped with age. Among the rotting books and faded papers, she found an old journal, its leather cover cracked and worn. Inside were handwritten accounts from the village's final days, detailing strange events tied to the well. According to the entries, the villagers believed the well was a gateway to something otherworldly, a realm of spirits or perhaps something far darker. The journal recounted horrifying rituals performed to appease the entity believed to dwell within the well. Livestock and, in desperate times, human lives were sacrificed, their bodies thrown into the abyss. Those who approached the well after dusk claimed to see the faces of the dead reflected in its waters, their eyes pleading for release. Emily's hands shook as she read, her breath hitching when she reached the final entry. The voices grow louder every night. They call my name now. I fear I am next. As the night deepened, Emily returned to the well, clutching the journal tightly. The air seemed heavier now, pressing against her like an invisible weight. The forest around her was eerily silent. Not a single insect chirped, nor did the leaves rustle in the wind. She set up her camera on a tripod near the edge of the well, her flashlight casting long, dancing shadows on the ground as it flickered again. She began to read passages from the journal aloud, her voice trembling. They called it a portal to the underworld, a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead are thin. As her words echoed in the stillness, the whispering began again, faint at first, but growing louder. This time, it wasn't just one voice. It was a chorus, a cacophony of murmurs, some pleading, others angry, all overlapping in a chilling symphony. Emily leaned closer to the well's edge, her flashlight pointed into the abyss. Suddenly, the beam caught something, a faint glimmer far below, like the reflection of light on water. But as she watched, the shimmer began to move, pulsating like a heartbeat. The whispers intensified, and she could finally make out distinct words. Come closer. See us. The voices seemed to coil around her, pulling her toward the edge. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, Emily lowered her camera on a rope into the well, hoping to capture whatever was below. As the camera descended, the whispers grew deafening, now punctuated by a faint, guttural growl. Then, the rope suddenly jerked, pulling taut as if something had grabbed hold of the camera. Emily's breath caught in her throat as the growl transformed into a low, rasping voice. You shouldn't have come. Panicking, Emily reeled the camera back up, her heart pounding. When she retrieved it, the lens was shattered, and the casing was coated in a strange, dark residue that smelled of sulfur and decay. She played back the footage on the camera's tiny screen, her hands shaking as the grainy video unfolded. At first, it showed only the damp, moss-covered walls of the well. But then, something appeared. A face, pale and gaunt, its hollow eyes staring directly into the lens before the feed abruptly cut to static. Emily stumbled back from the well, the whispers now replaced by a rhythmic thumping sound from deep within. It was steady, like the beating of a giant heart, vibrating through the ground beneath her feet. She looked around, her flashlight darting over the surrounding trees, where shadows seemed to move on their own. The oppressive silence of the forest was replaced by faint, distorted laughter, echoing from all directions. Desperate to escape, Emily packed up her equipment and turned to leave. But as she walked away, the sound of footsteps echoed behind her, slow and deliberate. She spun around, the beam of her flashlight revealing nothing but empty space. Yet the footsteps continued, growing louder, closer. Emily, a voice hissed, soft and venomous, sending a shiver down her spine. It was the same voice she had heard on the playback. She broke into a run, her breathing ragged as the whispers surged around her like a whirlwind. The trees seemed to close in, their twisted branches clawing at her as she stumbled through the dark. When she finally reached her car, she slammed the door shut and fumbled with the keys, the engine roaring to life just as a shadowy figure appeared in her rearview mirror. It was gone in an instant, but its pale eyes burned in her memory. Back in the safety of her apartment, Emily reviewed the footage in detail, hoping to rationalize what she had seen. But the more she watched, the more unsettling it became. In addition to the face, faint shapes began to emerge from the static. Countless hands, grasping and clawing, as if trying to pull the camera into the depths. And in the final moments of the recording, just before the feed cut out completely, a chilling message appeared scrawled in the condensation on the lens. You are ours now. Emily never returned to the Whispering Well, but its curse followed her. Strange occurrences began to plague her daily life, objects moving on their own, whispers heard in the dead of night, and shadowy figures lurking in her periphery. Her viewers noticed her growing paranoia in her videos, some even claiming to see shadowy faces in the background of her uploads. Finally, Emily disappeared without a trace, her last video uploaded automatically, a static-filled screen punctuated by a single whisper, "Help me."